Howdy, y'all. It's Curious Raven. We are on day 6 of Advent this year. I hope y'all are having fun. Christmas is only 4 days away. I can't believe it. It came pretty quick. I hope everybody is ready. I hope y'all are spending some time with your families and the people that you love. I am joined by Let's Read. I really do appreciate him allowing me to feature him. I hope y'all enjoy. Let's get to these stories. Number 1. All right. It's been enough years now that I feel ready to share this story. Now, from an outside perspective, the story is not super scary, and at most is odd. Having lived it, I was terrified of this place and still am to this day. So here it goes. Some background. At the time of this event, I was 20 and a firefighter for the U.S. Army. Everyone is shook when I say that, but Army bases are basically walled cities. Unlike any other city, they require firefighters. My best friend was in my unit with me, and for the sake of this retelling, we will call him Jay. Jay and I were on the 48-hour on 72-hour off schedule, and being two young idiots with more free time than safe, we developed some dumbass hobbies, biggest of which was urban exploration. This had nothing to do with the supernatural, as neither of us had any belief in anything supernatural and simply enjoyed the exploration. It felt like being a sort of a archaeologist, except one of more recent history. The place we were stationed in the U.S. was full of abandoned buildings or even entire towns within a few hours' drive. For well over a year, we broke into and explored literally hundreds of abandoned structures with absolutely no supernatural happenings. And it grew to be all we could think about. We spent all of our free time exploring or trawling the forums, looking for new places to see. It was one of those forums that I came across a post about a town, and I mean tiny town, that had an abandoned colonial-style mansion. I'll not say the name of the town here. I showed Jay this post, and we decided this mansion would be our next exploration. We drove 2 hours from our duty station to this little town and found a town that consisted of 3 streets, 1 gas station, 1 county tornado shelter, and that's about it. I'm talking super tiny town in the middle of the woods in the southeast United States. We went into the gas station and asked the clerk about the mansion, but she claimed to never heard of it. I should point out at this point that the entire town just gave off a bad vibe. As a former skeptic, I realized how dumb that sounded, but I really felt that. I don't know, threatened, oppressed, something like that by the entire place, for no real reason. The couple people we spoke to were nice enough, and the place, while perhaps a bit southern, poor, Methville-ish, was far from the worst area we had entered in search of an abandoned place to explore. The only thing I noticed odd about the town was for as small as it was, there was like 5 churches in town. Not super abnormal for the Bible Belt, but none of the churches bore classic Christian iconography like crosses or some such. They also had slightly odd names like Church of Light and other slightly obscure non-denominational names. Again, not that weird. The first of the weirdness started after we checked into the hotel we had booked about 15 miles away in the nearest decent-sized city and came back after dark. Any veteran urban explorer knows to go after dark and not to use bright lights till you are inside the building unless you want the locals calling the cops on you. Jay and I drove all around town for over an hour, which is impressive considering it was woods, a few fields, and 3 streets looking for the mansion. We never found it. We finally parked in the only large parking lot there, the tornado shelter, while we had a smoke and bemoaned the fact that we had wasted time on a false lead we noticed a group of 5 people walking down the side of the road in our direction. Again, not that odd. It got real odd when these 5 entered the circle of light created by one of the only 5 street lights in town, all in the parking lot of this county tornado shelter, and didn't become any clearer to see. That doesn't sound scary, but picture this. It's around midnight, give or take a half an hour, and someone is walking up to a lit area. While they approach, they are sort of hard to make out because you are looking at them from an illuminated area into a dark area. They would be hard to see, night vision being what it is, and disrupted by the light you're standing in. Nothing odd about that. But when these 5 walked into the light I was parked under, all 5 did not come illuminated. Again, it doesn't sound scary in the telling, but seeing 5 humans-shaped dark patches standing directly under a street light, where anyone, even someone with a dark complexion and black clothing, would had at least some detail, was terrifying. I don't mean this was a dark person in dark clothing standing in the light. I mean this was somehow 5-person shaped patches of pure dark standing in a well-lit area not 10 to 15 feet from us. The light had literally no effect on them. At that point, Jay said, "Fuck this," and hauled ass out of that town. That was odd and would have been scary enough. The second and final supernatural effect of my visit there were the dreams. I would like to again remind you I never saw the mansion with my own eyes. Jay and I ever spent nearly a year having this same nightmare about the mansion. That again, I shouldn't be able to say, was there. The dream starts with me walking down a path in the forest for a few seconds, before I enter a clearing and see an old but well-kept 3-story white wood Victorian-style house with a white wood wrap around deck and large wood columns. I walk up the dirt path to 3 wood steps up onto the porch and then up to the green painted double doors. I feel sick to my stomach in this place and feel something wants me to come inside, very bad. But at the same time, I am 100% certain that I should not enter the house. I open the right double door and all I can see inside the house is pitch black. I wake up. The dream doesn't sound scary from an outsider's view, and I get it will be super anticlimactic to anyone reading this, but that's because I am recounting a real thing I lived through and not a dope fictional story. I had that exact same nightmare. I felt the exact same pull to a place I very much should not enter for almost exactly a year after I went to that godforsaken town. It was scary enough on its own for me, but it wasn't till a slightly drunken conversation with a Jay a couple years later after I went to visit him, as our army duties had taken us to different places in the world, that he would mention something about the dreams. I asked him what he meant, and he would describe the exact same nightmare for almost the exact same amount of time as I had experienced. And that, dear reader, it is. That's my super anticlimactic story about the one and only genuine supernatural experience I had nearly 10 years ago. I still have the dreams once in a while, but whatever is in that town, I am 100% certain that there is a mansion there and something lives in it. Those events took place over 10 years ago, and I have a different life now. Out of the army now, when I am far too old and far too busy with family matters to do urban exploration anymore. Not the most exciting story on the platform, but it's the only true one I have ever had and it still makes me shudder to this day. I think the thing wanted me to find the mansion and kept trying to get me to come back, but who knows? All I do know is I will never go back to that podunk little town, and no, I will not tell anyone in the comments what the name of the place in or even what state. Believe me or don't. But I will have no part in sending someone else into that place because something very wrong lives there. Story 2. When I was 16, I worked in my county museum for the holidays. My job was to tour people around one of our outdoor buildings. I usually toured people through the house. Back in 1855, a doctor built his house on the land where the museum stands. His whole family lived there, and it looks very realistic. When you walk in, it feels like you are walking in and intruding into someone's home. Now, some days it was really slow. If the weather was bad or there just wasn't much going on, then I would usually just sit in the house for hours waiting for people to come in. Well, one day I was sitting in the main entrance waiting for people to stop by. I remember that it had been raining that day and was really slow. I had only about 3 people come in about 2 hours. Anyways, I was just sitting there in a chair they provided me, and I was scrolling on my phone. My peaceful environment was then interrupted by strange noises. It was coming from behind a door that was about 5 feet away from me. Since I knew what every part of the house looked like, I knew that behind that door were servant stairs and a door to the cellar. I was a little startled by the noise and chose to ignore it, but I heard it again. It was like if a mouse or something was rustling behind the door. I decided that I might as well go check just because I was so bored. I opened the door, but the noise persisted. I had then realized that the noise was coming from the cellar door. Fuck me. Now I had opened the door on other occasions, but never had the intention on going down. If I had to explain what it looked like, I would say the basement from The Conjuring. It was scary as hell. Anyways, after debating in my head, I decided to open the door. And to my surprise, the noise stopped. Matter of fact, the whole house seemed to stop making any noise. I stood there for a good 15 seconds before closing the door. I locked it, since many kids love opening the door and would pester me to let them go down. I went to go sit back down. Well, a little bit later, I heard creaking. This house is so damn old that almost everything creaks. The doors, windows, floors, even the lights make noise. But this was like a bigger person was upstairs and was walking back and forth. Strangely enough, I recognized the creaking. You know when you're at home and that one floorboard creaks? Well, after a while, you recognize it and know exactly which board is creaking. Well, I knew that it was the area that was in one of the bedrooms. It kept on going for about 30 seconds before it stopped. Kept it really quiet to make sure nothing was happening. I knew that no one was up there since the only way to enter was right where I'm sitting, and I knew that no one had come in. I would have seen it or heard it. Either way, I just tried to brush it off. An old house, maybe a breeze came in or something. Maybe it's just the house settling. I sat back down and went back on my phone. About 45 minutes later, some people came in. I gave them a tour, didn't notice anything strange, and wished them a great day. When I sat down, I had the sudden urge to sneeze. After sneezing, I heard a loud and clear, "Bless you, mister." It was so clear, I whipped my head around to look at whatever said that. There was nobody. Just like in the movies, I said, "Hello?" But no reply. I waited another 30 minutes to see if any stragglers were still there. But there was no one. Safe to say that I toured other places after that. Story 3.
My girlfriend and I moved into a new apartment roughly 3 years ago. Since then, she has been suffering from weekly episodes of sleep paralysis. Her brother used to have them when they were children, so she recognized what it was right away. She has described it as being completely paralyzed, except for being able to breathe and move her eyes. Most of the time, she sees a dark, tall figure moving around our apartment during these episodes. Sometimes she just hears it walking. Other times it's standing in the doorway staring at her, and occasionally it presses down on her chest, making it hard for her to breathe. She's a skeptic when it comes to the paranormal, yet these sleep paralysis episodes terrify her. And now, here's the really scary part. She usually manages to wake me up during these episodes by breathing quickly and loudly. I can then wake her from it, which allows her to move again, and the figure disappears. What I haven't told her is that for the past 2 months, I've seen this figure too. Right after I'm woken up by her breathing, I can see it, bent over her, pressing down on her chest. It always disappears the moment I acknowledge it or try to wake her. I've also seen it standing in the hallway, staring at me one night while I was home alone watching a movie. I pretended not to see it, and when I looked again, it was gone. Now comes the dilemma. Do I tell my girlfriend that her sleep paralysis demon might not just be a product of her mind, since I've seen it too, and at the same time as her when I wake her up from paralysis at night? I don't want to scare her. She's already terrified by the sleep paralysis, but at least she believes it's all in her head. And we can't afford to move. I think we can both live with this as long as I never tell her the truth. But I need your advice.
Story 4.
I moved into a rental house last year with my wife, built in the 40s, I think. It's an okay rental, but I'd never buy this place. It's a modge podge of half-assed DIYs, including a house extension. The church across the road owns it, and the two of the people there have managed it for a while, and I don't know much of the history of it otherwise. Even since the first time I toured it, the basement has creeped me out. There's this weird yellow half-finished bathroom downstairs in the laundry room that is at least a few decades old, a telephone down there, and the rest is unfinished. There's a creepy chair in the corner that I swear moved a few months ago, and a desk that I swear another chair used to be stacked on top of, but regardless, that's not why I'm making this post. Since we moved in, every once in a while a light is randomly on down there. Sometimes it's one of the draw cord lights, and I assume I forgot and left it on, although I'm pretty good about that kind of thing, and I doubt it. And for the past few months, more often the main light switch at the top of the stairs, and there's no way that I'd forget that. Lately, with us moving out in less than a week, it's been turning on every couple of days, which is more often than usual. I often notice it when I'm outside looking in, which is even creepier. It's worth noting that the switch will physically be up, too, when it wasn't before. But today, when it happened again, I had a creepy realization. It happens when we're sleeping. I know this because every night I go to my office down the hall from my bedroom and play games or do work in the dark. When I go into the hallway, it's always pitch black and I have to turn on my phone flashlight. There are decent-sized gaps under the doors, and I noticed if the lights were on. The night before yesterday, I caught it again, so yesterday when we did the laundry, I made a mental note that I turned it off in the late afternoon, so it turned on after I went to bed, but before we went down there again. I also just generally get a bad vibe when I'm down there and when the door is open. A few weeks ago, I left the door open a little because my cat wandered down there while I did laundry, and I was waiting for him to come up. And I swear when I was in my office, I heard the door moving back and forth slightly and creaking, which it normally doesn't do. Nothing else weird has happened in the house on that living floor, but it generally can be very creepy. The hallway where the door to the basement is, in general, is the absolute creepiest spot. But I really want to know, what are your thoughts?
All right, y'all, this is the end of the stories. I hope y'all enjoyed them. Please go over to Let's Read's channel and show him some love. And I will see you tomorrow. Until then, remember it's scary out there. Please like and subscribe.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in